AOC, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, has given what I think is one of the clearest indications so far that she is thinking of running in 2028. We're going to get to that in a moment. She did not announce a campaign, but when she was asked directly about it, she very deliberately refused to rule out that, yes, indeed, she might run for president in 2028. We're going to get back to that. But this was a very interesting conversation with Jonathan Karl about generational power in the United States. And this is a major topic as we think about what are future generations or even younger generations today thinking about their relationship to power and how they vote. Let's take a look at a couple of other clips. And here is AOC explaining millennials, a generation of which I am a part. And she says, you know, the millennials are no longer punk kids. We have financial responsibilities. Some of us have children, which, by the way, she talks about in a moment. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
That we have a responsibility to attend to and be responsive to. And even right now, when we look at this insurgent wave of what is happening, oftentimes when people are doing that Monday morning quarterbacking and what demographics voted where, the big one that's being ignored is the generational tidal wave. Tsunami.
I mean, you see it in the polling. It is significant.
Millennials are not, you know, punk kids anymore.
Yeah.
We're grown adults with mortgages and kids, and that generation is starting to be decisive at the polls, and there is anger at being ignored, sidelined, having our economic futures mortgaged by the generations that came before us on everything from the economy to climate, and we're taking the reins.
So I like this. AOC says millennials are no longer the punk kids, but a lot of institutions still see millennials in that way. To some degree, maybe it's because a lot of millennials are waiting longer than other generations to have kids for financial reasons. Maybe it's because a lot of millennials are not buying houses at the same rate as previous generations because they can't afford to. But she still makes the point, there are still many millennials with careers, children, and mortgages, but also with voting power. And we lived through the Great Recession, student debt, a brutal housing market, the pandemic, another huge surge in the cost of living. Now, simply saying it's the fault of older Americans that millennials have struggled, I think oversimplifies it. The real problem is an institutional problem. Washington has spent decades protecting those who have already accumulated wealth much more effectively than helping younger people build wealth. And you can see this in policy of all types. A generation that feels economically abandoned is now becoming decisive at the polls. And this is the issue with ignoring a group of people from a policy standpoint as they gain electoral power. Politicians can say, well, we're going to respond to that anger and we're going to deal with what it is millennials need and want. Or at some point, they're going to get screwed because millennials are going to say, you don't have my best interests in mind. Very interesting. AOC then makes the conversation personal and talks about how she is starting the process of freezing eggs, not ready or wanting to have kids now, but that this is something she is planning for. Take a look.
Juncture.
All right. And then before you go, you did have a personal announcement that you made. It was interesting to see you kind of open up in, on an Instagram Live, I believe it was. So tell me what it was and why you decided to do it.
I think it's important for us to normalize these conversations, especially in this political environment. The Trump administration has...
Remind us what the announcement was.
Yeah, sure. So I have decided to start the process of freezing my eggs.
Yeah.
And in this political environment where this administration is denying reproductive care to women across the country, from abortion rights to the ability to carry out a healthy pregnancy, I think it's important for us as leaders to have these conversations and share these processes, especially for working women across the country, and normalize them.
Okay, all right. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, thank you very much for being here. Let's hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
And when you're ready to make that decision about 2028,
I'll let you know.
Come back and talk to us about it.
I am sure that hearing AOC talk about freezing eggs will provoke a completely normal and rational, very well-adjusted response from the right wing. By which I mean, there are people about to get very preoccupied with the reproductive decisions of a woman that they have never met. That is what is going to happen here. I think AOC makes a serious point. Freezing eggs is often talked about privately, and it can be expensive. Physically demanding as well, and it's straight up not accessible to so many women. Talking openly about it removes the stigma, which I think is great. But if we're going to have genuine reproductive freedom, you need to do more than just normalize it. You have to have access. If you say, we want to destigmatize reproductive freedom, but people don't have access to contraception, abortion, fertility treatment, maternal care, paid leave, affordable childcare, what does it really mean that you have the freedom to make your own reproductive choices? Now, Republicans love to say we support families, but they restrict policies that, or rather, they use policy to restrict access to reproductive care or make it more expensive to raise kids, have kids, et cetera. That's a contradiction that you can't hide when someone explains, here are what the choices look like for me. And that's what AOC has done. I think it's great. She's going to get hit very hard on this. I know she knows that. I'm sure she doesn't care. Then the question of 2028. Jonathan Karl says, are you going to run for president? Here's her answer, and it's not a no.
So we're almost out of time to get to your future. I'm sure you saw the poll in New Hampshire that had you as the leading candidate, leading choice for Democrats. First, are you going to run for president?
I mean, I'm focused on winning the midterms. I'm running for Congress right now.
But I mean, do you see this as something? I know you said you're open to it. Is it a realistic possibility for you?
I haven't ruled out the possibility, and I'm very humbled to the tremendous amount of support out there. I think that we have a responsibility to remain focused on the midterms and not on our individual aspirations or plans.
And running for Senate.
Again, not a presidential announcement, but politicians who want to end speculation simply say, I'm not running. Wes Moore said that about 2028. I don't even know that I believe Wes Moore. I think if Wes Moore gets a sense that he might be able to win a primary, he would run. Marco Rubio told J.D. Vance, I'm not going to challenge you. If you run, I won't run. A lot of Republican strategists, including Rick Wilson, said to me last week, if Marco comes to believe that he might win, he'll just come up with a speech explaining why he's running anyway. So she is not saying no. And even when you say no, sometimes you mean yes. I think that this is the politically intelligent answer. And there are a lot of people who used to like AOC who have soured on her, saying she's become, she sold out, essentially. She's no longer as progressive. And I see her as far more sophisticated and savvy at this point. She knows that saying, I'm actively thinking about running in 2028, that will generate years of scrutiny. It will turn every appearance she does into a potential campaign event. And just leaving the door open in this way just lets her have options. And she would have, listen, there's a lot of people thinking about running who would have real obstacles. Gavin Newsom, who I was recently with, he is considered too centrist by many who would consider voting for Democrats. I don't want to say by Democrats, because I think a lot of the people aren't necessarily Democrats. They're independents who are on the left. Newsom is disliked by a lot of those people further to his left. That's an obstacle for him. I think AOC would have obstacles as well, including resistance from Democratic donors and from the more center-left wing of the Democratic Party. But AOC has something most members of Congress don't have, which is national recognition. She's got a big fundraising network, and she has a disproportionate level of support from young voters, which is very important right now. It's a careful answer from AOC, but I think the meaning is very clear, which is I am going to evaluate what my chances look like. And based on that, I will decide what to do, which is actually the answer from a lot of people. A lot of the governors I've spoken to have said or implied, I'm thinking about it, but it's going to be a calculation of whether I believe that I have a viable shot. I actually like that calculus more than those who say every objective measure tells me I have no shot, but I might do it anyway just to try to get some recognition and interfere in some sense with the primary. I don't love that. I like the analysis of where is my platform. And maybe if your platform isn't big enough, you just wait. And that's what maybe some of the other folks I haven't mentioned today are thinking about doing. So super interesting from AOC. I want to hear from my audience. Are you leaning any particular way? I know there's people in my audience who really like Pete Buttigieg and others who go, he's basically a consultant. That's the consultant class. We don't like him. There's people in my audience who like J.B. Pritzker or Josh Shapiro, and others who say, I don't believe that in this environment, a Jewish candidate can win the primary, never mind win the election. There's others I hear from who say, I don't find Newsom to be progressive enough, but I think he's the most aggressive, and the tone is what we need. And then I have people in my audience who also say, the only person even in the ballpark is AOC. It's AOC and Mamdani, but Mamdani can't run because he wasn't born in the United States, so it's AOC. Where are you? I want to hear from you. Send me an email, info@davidpakman.com. Leave a comment on this video. Shopping for a mattress is one of those things that most people put off. Once you finally decide we're going to do it, you just start guessing, which is why our sponsor, Helix Sleep, is such a great way to go. I've been sleeping on a Helix mattress for years at this point. You go to the Helix website, you take a short little sleep quiz, answer a few questions about your body. How do you sleep? What kind of feel do you like? What are you looking for? And they will match you with a model that is built around your preferences. And that's it. It just simplifies mattress shopping. The thing I most like about my Helix mattress is that the whole process was very straightforward. I just answered a few questions. They matched me with a mattress that is what I wanted. And I've had it for years. It's in perfect condition. I'm far from needing to replace it. Go to helixsleep.com/Pakman for 27% off site-wide, a discount they are only offering to my audience. The link is in the description.